Hello, Bobby here. I wanted to show you a video of a machine that I got recently, not very recently, but relatively recently, and it is called the Viking Designer SE. So let me tell you a little bit about there's always a story, right? There's always a story. So I have wanted one of these machines for years. I know a lady who actually owns one, and she hosted sit-and-sews at her house, and so she kind of turned me onto them. She loves these machines, and so I wanted one for a long time, and I never found one that was available in a price that I was willing to spend. They're usually went for like $2,000. So back when I really wanted one, I didn't have a lot of money, and so I had saved $1,000, and I was going to buy my first, good machine. And so I was looking for a Bernina Artista 200 or a Viking Designer SE, whichever one came up in my price range first. So if you look past my brother behind me, you can actually see, if I move my chair out of the way, you can actually see the results of that. So, my Bernina is in the corner there. I found the Bernina first. So I've had the Bernina for years. It became available my price range first. But I always wanted the Viking, and so I never stopped wanting it. And I do have the brother as well. You see videos of those. That's why some of you watch my channel. But, I always still wanted the Viking, even though I didn't find one first. I had the Bernina. I still wanted the Viking. So basically, I finally got one after wanting one for years. And so what happened is that I was at a quilt shop, and I was actually helping a friend look at Juki machines. And so this was a quilt shop that sold Juki Elna, which is now owned by Janome, and Baby Lock machines. And so I didn't expect to buy anything that day. I was just helping her look at Jukis and try them out. She bought 2 machines that day, and I wasn't planning to buy a thing. So I ended up walking past the used table, and I actually said in passing, "Oh, that's the Viking I always wanted. What a cool machine." And so I showed it to her. The owner of the shop was right there, and he said, "Oh, well, I've got 3 of them. If you want me to make you a good deal on one, just let me know." I'm like, try me. So he said $600. And when he said $600, I whipped my wallet out so fast that I think it got whiplash. So, these machines, even used on eBay and Craigslist, a lot of times they'll go for like $1,500 to $2,000 still. Even though they're like 10 years old now, at least, depending on, when yours was made, or when a specific example was made. But I don't know exactly when this one was made, but, I thought that was a really good price. So I bought it, and I took it home, and I was really excited to play with it. And so I turned it on, and all it did was flash. The lights flashed, and the screen stayed dark, and so I nearly jumped off a cliff. I was so upset. So I drove back to the shop the next day, and they exchanged it for one of the other ones they had, which actually was a really good thing because it came with more accessories than the original one, and it works perfectly. So that's a good thing. Actually, it's a really nice thing that happened. So I'm glad it happened. But yeah, let me show you just some of the things that I like about this machine. There are some things I don't like about it as well, so I'll go over those too. This isn't going to be a real tutorial video. It's just more like a review, just kind of what I think of it, just kind of showing you this machine because it's part of my sewing arsenal. So the only machine that I really kind of do tutorials on is my brother, because it's still kind of a new machine, and brother didn't offer a lot of support for that model. So this one is so old that most people aren't going to buy it, basically, even though it does have a touchscreen and a lot of features. It's a very old machine, and, a lot of people aren't going to be buying this one new because they prefer a newer machine, so they're not going to be buying this one used, because they just prefer more modern ones. I actually don't want a more modern one because guess what? This one was still made in Sweden back when Viking was Viking. I don't know if people know this or not, but some people do, others don't. But Viking is actually merged with Singer and Pfaff now, so Viking is not Viking anymore. They're all made in China now, and they're very cheap. And so, I don't know, they still have Viking features. I haven't used a new one, so I can't say how they feel, but I would be worried about that, just them getting in bed with Singer. That makes me uncomfortable. So I'm glad to have a real Swiss-made Viking in one way. In another way, I'm not glad, because guess what? If parts are needed on this one, they're probably not going to be readily found. So I did email a dealer, and she said most of the parts are still available. So that's a nice thing to know. But, I've heard other people say online that they had trouble getting parts for theirs. So I don't know what the truth is. Hopefully I won't have to find out for a long time. But let me go ahead and just bring it to life and show you some things about it. Oh, you know what? Even a Viking has to be plugged in for it to work. they don't work. If they're electric, they don't work unless they're connected to electricity, right? That makes sense. So let's try this again. I think we have life. Didn't that sound amazing? Isn't that a cool sound? It sounds like a robot or something, right? I love that. So basically, one of the first things I like about this machine is that the dust cover actually has an eject button, so I don't have to lift it up manually. I can just press a little round button on the side here, and it pops up. How cool is that? Isn't that fun? So I love that, and then that exposes the threading and the bobbin winder and all of those things. But even when it's closed, guess what? It has a window, so I can see how much thread I have. It also has an auxiliary spool pin built right in, so for bobbin winding, for twin needle sewing, things like that, that's built right into the inside of the dust cover, so I don't have to attach anything extra. It's already there, and then it's out of the way when I don't need it. So how fun is that? So let me go ahead and unthread the machine so I can thread it again. So I'm cutting at the spool and then pulling out of the machine the direction the thread will flow from the needle. I always do that because I've read this online, and I've heard other people who know more than I do that say that you can actually add more lint to the inside of the machine if you just rip the thread out. So I subscribe to that. I believe it. I can see the logic in it, so I try to treat my machines nicely. This one has a little dust on it because I hadn't used it in a while. I've been using my Brother and Bernina lately, just for a change. But let me go ahead and unthread the machine and just put new thread in it. I want to show some of the stitching, so I thought I would use red embroidery thread instead of just khaki colored quilting thread or sewing thread. So I'm going to go ahead and thread that. It'll probably be easier to see on the camera as well. So basically this spool pin can be vertical or horizontal. So if I wanted to use it like a vertical spool pin, I would just pop it up and then put one of the spool caps on it and then pop the thread on it. So that's very versatile, right? I can use it either way. I'm going to use it in the horizontal position right now. So I put the thread on it, put the cap over it, and then I push it down. So I'm going to go behind the middle piece here. It threads like almost every other machine in the world. So, you know, you go behind something and then behind another thing, this one here, and then I go down, and then up through the take-up lever, and then down again toward the needle, and now we come to a part of the machine that is not fun because Viking needle threaders suck. So I'm used to a Brother needle threader that puts the thread through the eye of the needle the first time every time. This one does not. This one, it actually unthreads the needle when you try to use it. I don't know how they designed that. It doesn't make any logical sense at all, but it's awful. It's the worst thread I've ever encountered. So I always just thread the needle manually on this machine, front to back. They have made it easy. The presser foot ankle is completely white plastic, so you can actually see the whole of the needle. So that makes it nice and easy to use. I like that about it. Let's see if I can just turn it at an angle just so I can see the hole better and not get my fingers in the way. I can also put the presser foot down to get it out of my way. Alright, so I made it. Okay. So, did you see what I just did there to get the presser foot up and down? Did you see what I did? That's the cool thing about this machine, and this is the reason I wanted one for so long. There is no presser foot lifter lever in the back. There's actually none at all. It's not in the back, it's not on the side. There's just not one. There's also not a hole for a knee lifter. Okay, a premium machine should have at least a knee lifter, right? No, this machine has a completely automatic or electric presser foot. So, you know, it's really fun. It's just amazing. So I can actually, there are 3 buttons here to control it. So I can actually lower it by pressing the down button, or raise it by pressing the up button. If I want extra high lift, I press the up button again. It goes all the way up, so I can get some extra bulk under there. If I want it to hover, I press the middle button. Now it's going to lower almost all the way, so I can see where it's going to land on the fabric, but look, I can still slide fabric under there. It's just hovering just above the fabric surface. So I can still move my fabric, but yet it lets me see where the fabric is going to land under the foot. So for placement and things like that, it's still a good thing to just have that hover position. I love that. So that's the only way you control the foot on this machine. There's not knee levers or manual lifter levers in the back. It's only those 3 buttons, and that's it. but it's also automatic. So if I were to just put fabric under here and start sewing, guess what? The foot's going to drop automatically. And then it'll start sewing. So I thought I had the feed dogs down, but I didn't. What happened instead was the Vikings do an auto fix. Unless you turn it off, they secure the stitches automatically at the beginning, and that fools me every time because I get used to my other brands. So anyway, this one, the foot will drop automatically, and you know, it's just a fun feature. I love that I don't have to drop it first, and then if I want to cut the thread, I hit the thread cutter, and then the foot raises by itself. The needle raises as well, so all I have to do is pull my project out, which is really cool. I love that feature about it as well. Little touches, okay, little touches are really fun. Like they actually put a magnifying glass on the bobbin cover so you can see it better. Okay, that's really nice. All the function buttons are over here. They've made this area concave so you can actually have a better view of the needle. I like that as well. We've got needle up down button, we've got speed up and down, start stop button, and guess what? How cool is this? I can actually use the stop start button without unplugging the foot pedal first. How cool is that? I don't have to unplug the foot pedal. With almost every other brand, you have to remove the foot pedal before you can use the stop start button. I don't use the stop start button, but if I wanted to, I could. So, you know, I'm cutting the thread again. Fix means just sewing in place. Okay, so that, you know, instead of reversing, which is here, this is reverse, but sewing in place to secure stitches. Stop and pattern begin, those have to do with sewing decorative stitches. And then needle up down, we'll just change the needle to the opposite position. It works very strangely on a Viking compared to other brands though, because if I use the needle up down button to put the needle in its opposite position, that actually changes the position of the ending position in the computer. So it's not a separate setting. This button actually changes the setting in the computer. It changes what it memorizes to do after you end each time. So, you know, normally you have an up-down button over here that will just change the function. It'll just make it be its opposite position, and then you change the always end position over here in the touchscreen. So this one is not like that. This is the only way to control that, and basically it will move it to the opposite position, but then it permanently changes the memory of that setting until you do it again. So that's a little bit annoying, and that's one thing I don't like about Viking. But the other thing I really don't like about Viking, and this one's a pretty big one, but the machine works so well that I don't really care, but I'll use it. I have other machines if I need more control, but the problem is that I can only adjust the stitch length in 0.5 millimeter increments. So, you know, that's really very limiting. I can go from 0 to 0.5, 0.5 to 1, 1 to 0.5, 1.5 to 2, 2.53. So you get the picture. I don't have to recite the whole thing, but the whole range. But, you know, what if I wanted to do like 1.3 millimeters long or 1.6? You know, I can't. So the jump is just very big. The graduation between steps for stitch length is huge. So I don't like that about it. That's very limiting, I think, and I don't know why they would remove that level of control. I think a lot of people would be upset about that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm the only one who cares, but I just prefer more settings than that for stitch length. But the touchscreen is nice. It's a big touchscreen, and it's relatively responsive. Sometimes it's not as responsive as newer machines, but it came with a stylus, so I can use that instead of my fingers. And the settings are right here. So one cool thing I wanted to show you, these are all the settings that I can actually choose. I like to turn off autofix a lot because I don't always need it. And then I like to change, I can actually play with the light bulb. So this is a fun thing. I can actually change the color temperature of the lights or the brightness. So that's as dim as they go. I leave them on as bright as they go. But I can actually change the temperature of the light to cold or warm. Okay. So that's really fun. I've never had that on another machine before. I love that feature. I usually put it in the middle. I always put it in the middle. But, you know, that's really a neat feature. How cool is that? And to get rid of a menu, you just tap that. And to get rid of this, yep, tap it again at the bottom. So it has automatic presser foot pressure. So it will sense the fabric. It has automatic, I think it even has automatic tension. But basically what you do with a Viking is you tell it the kind of fabric that you're sewing on, and it will make those adjustments. So you can tell it I'm sewing on light, heavy, medium woven fabric or stretch fabric, or vinyl, or I'm sewing a button on, you know, you tell it any of those things and it will actually make the changes for you to the settings of the machine. That's really cool. The other thing is, let me see, what else? To drop, you know what, to drop the feed dogs though for free motion quilting, guess what, you have to do it in the touchscreen. There's not a button for it, so you do that and it'll drop the feed dogs for you, but there's not a button on the back or hidden anywhere. You just do it right there, so that's different than most machines. I'm just trying to think of what else I want to show about this machine. I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted to kind of show it a little bit, demonstrate some things about it, tell you how I feel about it. So since I don't really have an agenda with this, I don't really know where to go. Like usually I'm showing you something specific on a brother machine on how to do something, so this is not that. So I have to turn off my button. I've told it apparently that I want to sew a button on, but I really just want to seam. So there, I'm back to seaming. So this is where you would choose your fabric, and then this is what you would choose what you're doing, whether you're overcasting, button sewing, seaming, whatever you want to do. So you have two selections to make, and this is called the Sewing Advisor. So you know, that's how you can tell the machine what you want to do, and it'll actually pick the correct settings for you. So that's okay. You can override anything it does though in the menus. I can change the stitch length or width. I can change the tension. So I don't have to. I can change the pressure manually. I don't have to obey its orders and only do those things. I can actually override any of the things that it picks for me. But I found them to be pretty accurate. One time I sewed on something heavy, and I chose the heavy setting, and it actually picked a longer stitch length than I would have used, and it actually ended up feeding better and looking better than the shorter one that I would have picked myself. So that was actually really cool. Okay, this does have a light over the harp and over the needle, which is pretty common on newer machines, but this is one of the first brands to do it, so I kind of like that about it. Bobbin winder is independent, so you know, you can actually slide this up, and it's completely separate from the sewing machine motor, the main motor. So I can start it, you know, and then I can actually change the speed of it. So if I'm winding a tricky thread, I can slow it down as much as I want to on the touchscreen. Okay, and then when I'm done, I have to stop it on the touchscreen as well. So when it's full, it'll stop by itself, but if I want to stop it before, then I have to do it on the screen. So when I move this back, that should disappear. It does. So that's nice. It does have a free arm, so I can slide this off. Okay, and so then I have my free arm. The really cool thing, look at this. So I want to make sure you can see that. So this, okay, these are all the feet. So it's got little compartments for all the feet, and so they're organized and they stay in place. Then it's got a rubberized removable bobbin holder. So how fun is that? So the bobbins stay in place. The thread doesn't fly all over the place. It holds a lot of them. I can take that out if I need to. And then the bobbins only fit in the machine one way, so you can't get it wrong. One side is actually slightly bigger than the other one, so they only fit in one way. But how cool is that? There's even a place for needles. So very fun. I love that. And then in the back of the case, okay, there's just more storage, so you know you can actually see it's dirty in there, but you can see a lot of these things. I bought a couple of things for it when I bought it because it didn't come with them. I bought a metal Viking walking foot. Okay, so that was almost as expensive as a Bernina foot, which is just insane. But I've also bought the Sensor Q foot, which is for embroidery or free motion. I do have the embroidery module for this one, but I haven't used it yet because I like sewing on it so much, and I have a brother and a Bernina that also embroider, and I don't even embroider very often, so I may never use that embroidery module, but I have it if I want to. I usually embroider on the Bernina because it lets me change the size of something as much as I want to, where the other brands don't. So really fun machine. I really like it. It's not perfect. It does have a few flaws, but it's just so nice to work with. The lighting is the best lighting I've ever used on a sewing machine before. The stitch quality, the satin stitches are amazing. Let me show you the satin stitch because that is really fun. The satin stitch is really cool in this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the menu here and pick the satin stitches. So I like that one. So let me go ahead and put fabric under here and begin to sew. cut the thread. Okay, look how tight this satin stitch is. Let me see. Can you see this? It's just really cool. I actually tried to satin stitch on my brother one time, and the project actually was ruined because the edges were so jagged and unclean that I couldn't even use the project. Like, it was really, really awful. And that's because the other brands don't have a true satin stitch. They actually have an adjusted zigzag instead. So you have to just alter the zigzag to be really close and really tight, and it's not made for that. So, you know, the true satin stitch on a Viking, just amazing. It's really, really good quality. So that looks beautiful. But it's got a lot of fun decorative stitches as well. And so I really like a lot of things about this machine. I'm glad to have it. Let me turn it off. There are a couple more things I don't like about it. So some of those things would be when I plug the pedals on the side. Okay, let me show you. So the pedals on the side, or the cords on the side, whenever I plug these in, they're both 2-pin connectors, so they're not round like they would be on a different machine. So, for example, on my brother, on my brother, this is the foot pedal for my brother, and see how it's a round connection? So it actually swivels and pivots, so there's less stress on the connection. The Viking is a 2-pin connector, so it doesn't swivel or pivot at all. So it's very easy to break these things off. I haven't done it yet, but they should have made that swivel. That's silly that they didn't. Now, since I did buy my machine used, I'm going to show you the foot pedal. It has started to yellow a little bit. Plastics do that sometimes. It's okay. It still works. It's a nice big pedal. Okay, it's really, really a beefy pedal. I like that. But here's the best part. Retractable cord. So a retractable cord on a sewing machine pedal. I know Fofs do that as well, but I don't have any other brands that actually do that. So I love that, because if I'm packing it up to go to sit and sew or quilt class, I don't have to worry about finding something to do with the cord. I just pull it out and it sucks it in, and then I just take it with me and I'm ready to go. So how fun is that? I love the retractable cord on that. Okay, and was there something else? No, I don't think of anything else really. The one thing that is weird about this one is that the motor doesn't, the computer doesn't take full mastery over the motor. So like if I have it set for needle down, if I lift my foot up and the needle is up, it'll just stop right there. It won't put the needle down. So very fascinating. Other machines actually will go ahead and override whenever you stop. They'll go ahead and just make it end where you've told it to. This one doesn't do that for some reason. It's a very strange, quirky kind of machine in that way. Also, the presser feet, they don't have a button in the back to drop them off. Instead, what you do with the presser feet on this machine is you actually just literally just pull them off at a slight downward angle. So you pull them kind of down and forward, and then you just push them back on the opposite way. So they're not really traditional drop-on, drop-off for snap-on feet. They are still considered snap-on feet, but they don't have a button in the back to release them. So you just pull them off or on, which is just a little different, but really fun machine. So that's about it. I didn't really want to show you too much about it. I just wanted to sing its praises and talk about it and show it off a little bit. So that's all I have for today, and I will see you the next time. Thank you for watching.